thousands and thousands and thousands of acre-feet of water, creating enormous pressure on a leak that they didn't see.
It's caving in.
By the time they knew that what was happening, it was too late to do anything for the dam.
And water is coming through in monumental amounts.
There was a tremendous roar and a snapping sound, a cracking sound.
Look, there goes the whole side. There goes the whole complete side of the north edge of the Teton Dam.
It just took your breath, and you wondered what's going to happen downstream.
And the water in monumental, holy, great.
I was told to leave and to take nothing with me.
What can I say? People downstream better get out.
Our lives are in danger, so I left.
People downstream better get out. And it's just roaring mud, water, roaring and pouring down the Teton.
Everything we own, even our car.
The entire section of downtown Rexburg is underwater. Water flowing in Rexburg. Main Street is submerged.
I remember my dad seeing us through the helicopter window and realizing we were alive and well. Yeah, he was pretty relieved.
After this day is over, there are going to be many people remember this day.
Your house is gone. Your parents' home is gone. Your in-laws' home is gone. What are you going to do?
People in the upper Snake River Valley, I remember June 5th, 1976 for a long time.
He said, you got to get out of here. And they said, right behind you. And that was the last anybody saw of them.
The day the Teton Dam collapsed and the reservoir roared down the valley. Everybody out. Make preparations. People along the river, the crews should get out right now.
The Teton Dam began filling in the fall of 1975. It was expected to take years to fully fill, but after a good water year, it only took a few months. By summer, the Teton Dam gave way, and what followed is what eastern Idaho still lives with today. You also have to remember, there wasn't cell phones or live streams. There was a handful of journalists who were trying to follow this disaster as it unfolded right before their eyes.
To have something this big and with this much national coverage was extraordinary. My name's John Potacek. I was a photographer here at Channel 7 back in 1976 when the Teton Dam collapsed. I was 24 years old at the time and had only been working here less than 5 months.
In terms of the major story for Idaho, Teton's probably the biggest story. I'm Roger Simmons. I was a reporter, and I'd only been here for a month. Sal and I came back to the station after we shot the feature story that he was going to do. I was helping him with the editing when we got it across the wire that Teton had gone down. And so we kind of dropped everything and started working on that and making phone calls on, to anybody and everybody who we could get information from.
I came back into the building, into the newsroom, and our news director, Sal Selesky, grabbed me and says, get your equipment, we're headed to the airport. He said, Teton Dam has collapsed.
Sal was kind of in good with Governor Anders at that time, and so Sal got us a seat on the helicopter going over there.
I think it's going to be a nice, quiet Saturday with nothing going on, and all of a sudden you're flying across the state with the governor. When we got there, we did several circles around the dam as it was emptying out. It was overwhelming when you saw what was happening. It was low-level flying, so it was rather bumpy. There were no seats in the back of the plane. So we were on our knees, trying to shoot out the window as we did a loop around the dam. It was disturbing to see what was happening, and at the same time, it was remarkable to see that the dam had actually collapsed.
We put a story together based on that video. As soon as the governor touched down back in Boise, Sal and I ran over to the State House and did an interview with the governor on what he'd seen over there. Sal told me, he said, well, we're going to be heading over there. When we got over there, what I noticed is that, you know, houses were swept off of their foundations. The one thing that I noticed more than anything that you couldn't show on camera was the stench, because all of that water wiped out all of the septic tanks and the sewer, and then all of the livestock and, you know, feed lots and everything else was just taken downstream. It was devastating. If you have the kind of force that can take a house off of its foundation and take it downstream for about a mile or two, livestock doesn't have a chance. People that get in the way are obviously not going to have a chance. You're doing news, but by the same token, you look at somebody that just lost everything, and you know, you feel for them, that, and you realize what they're going to have to do to pick up and start all over again. There weren't that many people that weren't affected over there. It wasn't something like a tornado where it touches down in one area and misses other areas. The water just came through, and I mean, it swept through everything. So this was just total devastation.
It was my first experience with a big story and a national story, and has stayed with me all these years.
Jake Calderwood was one of the first men at this site. He helped build the Teton Dam, and on June 5th, 1976, he was also one of the last men at the site trying to fix what was breaking right before his eyes.
I arrived on the dam about 11:30 in the morning. When I come around the corner, I could see water leaking about halfway up or 3/4 of the way up the dam, water coming out the downstream face. And I said to myself then that it looks bad. I don't think we can stop it. If ever passed, you wondered, well, this will probably be my last one, because it was already bad. The water was already gushing out quite fast. We knew we were working all over the top of the leak. We knew that it was dangerous, but we just kept pushing the rock, hoping that it would stifle the leak. The dam was caved off in front of us, and we were backing away, like we kept thinking, it's going to cave in again, and it's going to cave in behind us and take us with it. But it never. We were going back fast enough to where we got back to safety before it widened up and completely gave way. There was a tremendous roar and a snapping sound, a cracking sound. I just couldn't believe it. You just couldn't imagine a big project like that being washed away so rapidly when it took so much pain and effort to put it together. See the water there, and you could see it rushing down and mowing over the trees and everything down the canyon, and you knew it was going to go out and raise all the havoc in the valley below, and you wondered if everybody could have time to get to safety. You just couldn't believe it. I still can't believe that it could wash out.
My name is Anita Thompson Knapp. I was 11 years old when the Teton Dam broke, and that changed my life going forward. My best friend Peggy, who lived across a potato field from me, she called me on the phone and she said, "Did you hear that the Teton Dam broke?" She told me that she and her family were packing up their car and they were going into town because the announcers on the radio were instructing people to go up to Rick's College.
All right,
right, anyone needing refuge from this now, the Ricks College campus buildings are open.
In the meantime, my mom got back home because she heard on the radio that this was happening. She came home. She was going to get us and take us into town, and then for some reason, she decided that we would stay put. She really thought that the floodwaters would not reach us. She thought that they would be much further east and south. So we decided to stay. My mom knew that at some point the electricity was going to go out. And so in her usual humorous way, she thought, I'm gonna put a roast in the oven. So she put a roast in the oven, and hoping that it would be done by the time the power went out. So in the meantime, though, we just sort of waited. My mom, I think she got worried that perhaps the water would actually come our way. And I know she must have had second thoughts at that point, but it would have been much too dangerous to try to drive into town at that point just in case we got caught in the floodwater. After a while, I did see something coming towards us, but it was not what I thought it would be. In the movies, it looks like a giant wave, but what I was looking at was a long, low wall of rolling dust and dirt. And what I realized later was that it was 80 billion gallons of water pushing the dirt and debris and everything in its path in front of it. My mom saw two horses running down the Hibbard Highway, just down the lane from our house, and they got caught in some barbed wire, and she was able to untangle these horses and they ran free, and she turned around and ran back, and we were just telling her to hurry, hurry. And she got to the front stoop and up onto the stoop, and it seemed like just moments later, the water was suddenly all around us. It just came in fast. And we got into the house before it swallowed the front stoop. Ultimately, we got about a foot of water in the house. Sure enough, the roast was done by the time the power went out. And so we sat on the edge of that couch, our feet in the water, eating slices of roast and just waiting and wondering and realizing that my dad and my brother probably did not know that we didn't come into town. I think they assumed we did. We did also climb up onto a fence and just watch that water continue to go by, and there were bloated cows, there was debris of all kind, there were rooftops floating by. Between all the stuff we had moved, climbing up and down several times, just the adrenaline of it all, I climbed up to the top bunk bed, wet clothes and all, and I just fell asleep. And my next memory is that I was awakened by a really strange noise that I couldn't figure out what it was. But I soon realized that it was a helicopter. Well, what had happened is that my dad and my brother had gone up to the college and they were looking for us there. They ran into our landlord, who told him no, they stayed out there. And my dad just panicked. He was able to get in touch with the National Guard, and he convinced them to fly him out to our house in Hibbard to find us. And they had us go out through my bedroom window, and they guided us and helped us back to out to the helicopter. I remember my dad seeing us through the helicopter window and realizing we were alive and well. Yeah, he was pretty relieved. That was a good moment. My mother, as she was going out to the helicopter, somebody snapped a photo of her. That photo later appeared in a farm magazine publication, and my mom would laugh about it later because in the photo, the caption of the photo in this magazine said, "Cynthia Thompson runs to the helicopter as floodwaters rise around her." It had been receding for quite some time, so we got a kick out of that. I remember flying back into Rexburg and looking down and seeing nothing but brown, dirty water. Every surface landscape was covered. You couldn't see any landmarks. When we got back to the college, they were putting people up in dormitories. I remember going into the Man-Wearing Center, and there was this large pile of donated clothing. So I dug through this pile of clothes, and I found a t-shirt and some shorts, and I got some dry clothing. It affected my life in the way that everything going forward after that was before the flood or after the flood.
The dam collapse killed 11 people, a number that many say is remarkably low given the scale of that collapse. But for families who lost their loved ones, they say one was too many.
There goes another huge volume amount of dirt from the dam crumbling down into the river. The water was pouring downstream. We can't repeat this enough. The people downstream have to be prepared. Along the river, if you have not evacuated as yet along the Teton River, do so immediately. You can't save a thing. This is no joke.
I was at work in Rexburg at the radio station KADQ. We got a call from my boss who had been up in a plane flying over the dam, and he called and said, we need to get on the radio to announce to evacuate, that it's starting to fail.
This is Clara. She lived in St. Anthony at the time.
Well,
this is her sister Colleen. She was married to Glenn Bedford, and they had 2 kids.
I think I was getting ready to freeze a bunch of asparagus, and Glenn was at work. And then she called, and I don't remember the conversation that much, other than she just said she thought the dam was giving away.
By then I was just in a panic, and so I just left the office. I didn't care, you know, they're on their own. Got in my car and drove about 100 miles an hour out to my mom and dad's below the dam. So we were putting things up on the table and the beds and stuff like that, and then we decided we better get the cars out and stuff like that. So we drove all that up to my place in St. Anthony.
My husband came home, and I told him about it, and so he said he was going to go out to my folks. I didn't know he was going to go pick up his brother and his father-in-law.
Glenn's older brother was Jim Bedford, and Jim's father-in-law was Charles McRae.
On the way there, we saw Glenn, my brother-in-law, and his brother and Mac driving out to my folks' place. So Dad says, well, I forgot my medicines. I'll go get that, check on them, see, you know, get them out of there. And he got there, and they were loading things up in the truck, and he said, you gotta get out of here. And they said, right behind you.
But a horrible thing, and a horrible, scary thing for people downstream. We hate to bring this up, but a catastrophe this size was perhaps may result in loss of life. We hope not, but we've got to.
So, you know, then just started waiting and hoping they'd show up, and you know, you just don't really think those things can happen to you, really.
And that was the last anybody saw of them.
He hollered for them to follow after him. So I think he thought they were right behind him when he left their house, and I think he always felt really, you know, it always haunted him. I think he carried a lot of guilt.
You know, we kept asking if anybody had seen Glenn and Jim and Mac. Just a waiting period. The next 2 weeks were just a blur.
They found Mac and Jim in Sugar City.
Then we just focused the next 2 weeks on finding Glenn. A lot of crying and just waiting for word from anybody about what happened to Glenn, and hoping that maybe he made it to Rexburg or something, and it would call us, so we were waiting for that.
I think it was about 10 or 11 days altogether before they found Glenn. Our pickup was I think, clear to Sugar City. You know, it's kind of amazing that it can pick up things like a pickup and just move them for miles, you know.
It had a lifelong impact on all of us. They grew up without their dad, and that's just very sad to me, because Glenn was a really nice guy. He was just really special, just did anything for anybody, you know. And Jim, he was very nice guy, and they had their little families, and they just, all they wanted was just to live out their lives, you know. "11 lives lost," it seems like it's like a little footnote at the end of an article. And it just, to me, that's where it begins, of those lives that were lost.
Yeah, well, and even it's 11 lives, but 3 of those lives were my family members. Sometimes there's this impression that Dad and Jim and Mac lost their lives because they were just trying to save possessions, and it's, you know,
they were trying to help.
Yeah, they were trying to. They went out there in an effort to make sure that my grandma and grandpa were okay.
People rebuilt, and in some cases, I think they even came back better. But for this family, it didn't. You know, it's a lifelong consequence of the flood.
Now, from my vantage point here at the dam, I can see out into the valley, and now I can see the water out in the valley. And it's flooding everything. It's flooding everything out in that valley. This has to be one of the largest catastrophes to hit the upper valley area in, well, perhaps in its history. Now back to the studio.
We say that there was a dam that broke and built a community. For a lot of this community, you always ask what happened, why, and about a week after the flood, there was a meeting at Ricks College of some religious leaders. So Spencer W. Kimball was president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I could weep if it would help, but I don't know that it would.
And he told them things like, "You can do this. It's going to be hard, but get to work and you can do it together."
Now we'll move forward and go build for the future.
For a lot of people, as I'm talking to them about their stories, the thing that gave them hope, they said when the yellow buses came, we didn't know their names, but they would show up. Hard things happen, and you can get through it, especially when you have the support of family, friends, or in this case, even strangers. A lot of us would just pick up and just say, I don't have the wherewithal to start again here. But they did. They believed in this community. For a lot of them, it was seeing the outpouring of support from surrounding communities. It's so inspiring to hear how people showed up for each other.
It was just a tremendous cleanup effort. And the LDS Church really did jump in and help people that needed it. So I think that was a benefit for the area.
I'm sure most kids today don't even know about the disaster unless it's brought up at school, and I don't know that schools are really teaching Idaho history about events like that. So it is important that the newest generation knows what happened in '76 and the amount of destruction that it caused.
Today, whenever I see clips or read articles about the flood, I get a little bit of maybe some PTSD. It still sends my heart racing. Whenever I still smell occasionally the flood mud smell, which you never forget, it brings all that back. And there is a song called Come Saturday Morning by the Sandpipers, and there's a line in the song that says, "But we will remember." And we will remember long after Saturday's gone. And that is a theme song to this event. to me. I think that these kinds of events bring out the best in people. You really realize what's important. And they rebuilt and moved forward, and it humbles you. It humbled everybody who was involved in this.